Hello everybody, welcome along to this edition of the Rebel Wide Ball, and I'm supposed to start with news. The vaccines are back in business, and do you know, over the past couple of days I was of the belief that the vaccine programme, the rollout was continuing at pace, and that in a short period of time the whole of the country, or at least the majority, would be vaccinated. But talks today that there's a fly in the ointment, if you like, and in relation to Johnson & Johnson, the one-shot vaccine, and AstraZeneca, that they are seen now to be shortfalls in delivery in both of them. And even though that they predict by Friday of this week that 25% of the adult population will be vaccinated, there are no, I think, serious concerns as to whether they will be able to meet the government projections, if you like, that 80% of the adult population would be vaccinated by the end of June. And if that doesn't happen, and it now is in some doubt, I think that would slow down the lifting of the restrictions, which would be met with a lot of opposition, particularly by people in the hospitality industry. And I know if you're travelling through any Irish town or city over the past week or so, you will have seen renovation works going on in a lot of these hospitality outlets, pubs and restaurants and what have you, getting ready for outdoor dining. And, you know, pubs themselves, even in villages that had become a little bit dilapidated, have been painted up in the expectancy that reopening would happen probably in early July or even in June. So I think that has a little bit of run. The other story that caught us during the week, if you like, was this guy Dominic Cummings. Some of you will probably remember him as a former chief advisor to the mighty Boris across the pond. I'm actually thinking that we should do nearly a separate broadcast every week to cover the happenings of the said Boris. But anyway, this boy Dominic was up yesterday before the Oireachtas committee in the House of Commons, and 7 hours he was there. And even though a lot of what he said seemingly would have been more or less well known in the British media, this guy has an agenda as well to carry out. But even though for that standard, some of the stuff that he left loose, I mean, it created the impression of such incompetency at the top, very top level of the British government, in particular in their response to COVID at the very beginning, back in in February and March of 2020. You all remember about Cheltenham and all of that, and that the government guidelines then were drive on, take care, this is not serious, this is no more than the common flu. And I mean, I think at one stage Cummings said yesterday that the British were being led by donkeys, and I don't think the donkey population, if they had a representative here, they would be very happy with that comparison. He said that Boris was totally unfit for purpose. That doesn't surprise a lot of us. Then this guy Matt Haddock, who is the health secretary, he mentioned that he should get the bullet for several lies that he told him. And I mean, he brought up things like that at one stage they were talking about that Boris Johnson would be more or less infected with the coronavirus live on television to prove that this was no more than a common flu. There was some debate. These are all his allegations. At one stage that Carrie Simmons, who is his fiancée, Boris's fiancée, I presume some of you have got the save the date for their upcoming wedding, but that there was a problem with their dog, and this took up nearly more time than what was facing the people. And, you know, Cummings more or less said that the thousands of people died as a result of their incompetence. And I know now that time maybe puts a gap between them, but if you think back, I think there was so much truth in what he was saying. But the problem for the likes of Dominic Cummings is that he has such a difficulty himself with elements of the truth, that, you know, what weight does he carry at the end of it. But when you think about fellas like, you know, Boris and Donald Trump, and then a guy that I didn't, you know, I have to confess I didn't know he existed, this fella Alexander Lukashenko, who is he's a dictator out there in charge of Belarus for the past 25 years. And the amount of grief that's happening in that country, ever since there was some elections recently, 80% I think voted in favour of him. And I mean, that would be the first thing that would make you suspicious today, that 80% of any population would vote for any party or any individual. But since then, there's been a lot of rioting, a lot of deaths, and grief visited upon people. And there's, and I presume there are several journalists that take sides in this, but one of them is a 26-year-old Raymond Prostasevich, I think is his name. But anyway, he was on a plane, a Ryanair flight, flying across Europe last Sunday, and the mighty Alexander decided, let's ground the plane, gave orders that the plane were to be brought down, which it was, saying something about a bomb on board. This guy was taken off, as you know, and a number of hours later, he appeared in a video saying he was treated really well. He was confessing to all sorts of crimes. It's like, it's so hard to believe that these kind of people are still in charge. I know some of you would have attended maybe AGMs of clubs and organisations, you know, when you're in there maybe for 3 or 4 hours and it's coming to the last position and nobody wants to be in the hall at all. And if there's anybody at all proposed for a job, even though that you might think that they weren't up to it, you'd more or less let them through. You know, I'm not saying these jobs are not serious, but some of the jobs that come up, liaison officer, maybe even a delegate to the local divisional board, well, I'm convinced that even allowing for that if it would like a Boris, Alexander or Donald, they wouldn't even get those jobs. It's frightening to think if I can go on. Anyway, look, it's moving on to GAA, and I suppose the big story this week, there's no hurling on this weekend, but the big story would be the carry-on between Clare and Wexford. You know, where you probably remember this, that Wexford couldn't play last weekend because of a number of cases, being a number of players testing positive. But when the tracers were on to these players, it would appear that they identified a couple of Clare players that they had played in a match the week before. And I think this was a new development. You know, in the past, I don't think players were considered as close contacts, maybe casual contacts. And of course, Brian Lohan, the Clare team manager, waded into this and expressed his disappointment. A war of words broke out. But beneath all of this, you know, something I can't help but think that this has something to do with the horrific ill feeling there is in Clare GAA in relation to the Fitzgeralds, father and son. Some people on their side and some people against them. It's such a pity that a county, small county, is being torn apart by this kind of stuff. But anyway, by the way, that match between Wexford and Kilkenny, seemingly the Wexford players they did further tests recently over the past couple of days, and that match goes ahead this weekend. So there's no hurling. It's the final game in the regulation games in the Football League, and there are some incredible matches going on here. And I don't think there's any league in the world that would be putting up with this kind of carry-on, if you like, that there'll be matches played this weekend, and the score, not mind the result, the score, the difference, the number of points and goals scored, could decide whether a team goes for a promotion game next weekend or a relegation game next weekend. And Cork footballers are in this very boat. They travelled to Innis on Sunday, 1:45 to play Clare, and they have to win. And they have to win it by at least 4 points, I would suggest, for them to be safe, or when I say safe, to present them with an opportunity to play either Mayo or Meath the following weekend in a promotion final, in a promotion game that would take them up into Division 1. If they lose, or even if they draw, or maybe win even by 1 or 2 points, they will face a relegation match the following weekend, either against Down or Westmeath. Cork's league in Innis, in the league in particular, and championship, has been reasonably poor of late, and Clare have been playing great football. They're probably operating above their station when you consider the small population, even though the more I think about it, I think Cork's population of football is probably smaller than what some of us think. But anyway, I still think though that Cork have a chance. They have more than a chance of winning this game, and I think if they tighten up and play as it, you know, their defence last week was really good in the game against Laois. I know Laois wasn't the best in the world, but you know, Clare's main players, the likes of David Turbiddy, Ciaran Sexton and Owen Cleary, if they're held reasonably to low scoring figures, the Cork have a good chance here. It would be an absolute disaster to be facing a relegation playoff, if you like. Cork don't want to be the team that goes back down into Division 3 after just coming up there last week. Another story that came up about GAA was, you know, there was big matches last weekend, and a number of high-profile players pull you up with hamstring. Michael Murphy from Donegal, and if that is a serious hamstring, that's Donegal done and dusted for the year. And you also had Johnny Small from Dublin, and that led them, you know, some people to believe that this was all to do with the short running. I saw Eamon Fitzmaurice on about this, but see me, Dr. Niall Moyna, who is Professor of Health and Human Performance at DCU University, and is a bit of an expert in this. Now, the same guy seems to be an expert on a lot of things, but anyway, he's a professor, so we'll have to take his word on it. He disagrees with this, and he thinks that the conditioning of players over the recent number of years, you know, is of a height that this year should make no difference, and that the strength and conditioning programs that they have been operating, these players for quite a while, you know, shouldn't be leading to hamstrings. He's just said, look, hamstrings happen all the time. Sebastian Coe, British athlete, once said that, you know, every great athlete was only one bad hamstring tear or injury away from complete oblivion. So yeah, that's a debate that will go on. In terms of ladies camogie, and obviously ladies camogie, ladies football and camogie, we've 3 Cork teams in action this weekend. The ladies footballers to have a big game against Dublin, and that game goes on Saturday at 7:30 in Portlakeeve again, which is great promotion for the game. It's going to be live in TG Car. Both camogie teams are in action, and they travel away on Saturday, and both of them, you know, the senior camogie team, they had a big win over, they had a win over Tipperary. They take on Waterford, and they'd be favourites to win that game. It goes on in Walsh Park on Saturday at 2 o'clock, and then at 1:30 the same day, the Cork Intermediate team, they play in Division 2 of the Camogie League. They travel to Gort to play Galway, and after victories already over Tipperary and a big win over Kerry last weekend, I expect them to win. What I'm a bit surprised about though is that the Cork team, by the way, that was named earlier on, there's a number of changes in it, so this is obviously close enough to the side. You have girls like Chloe Collins coming into the side, she's from Tariff, Aisling Hutchinson, Abby O'Mahony, Dara, Kylie and Libby Coppinger. They are due to start, and the players missing out on this occasion, Amos Blaine, Aisling Kelleher, Sarah Hayes, Breed O'Sullivan and Emma Cleary. However, the Cork Camogie, I've noticed it for a while that Cork Camogie teams, it's very hard to find them, and are they released in the week, in the days leading up to the game. We just take what happens here in Cork and GAA. The football team is usually to be named tonight, actually at 9 o'clock. When the hurlers are playing, they release their team either on a Thursday or Friday. The ladies footballers seem to do likewise. And I think this, some people kind of say, look, sure, we don't know what team is going to be there until the day. But that misses the complete point, because it gives media people, whether they're operating the print media, radio, TV or social media, it gives them an opportunity to fill space to talk about these games, and that's publicity accruing. I'm not too sure that the Camogie are doing this. I saw a team earlier on, the Cork Senior Camogie team for the match in Waterford, and it includes Libby Coppinger and Hannah Looney, who've been named in the football team for Saturday night, and I think this football they will be playing this weekend. So I think that Camogie team management in this county are doing the game a disservice by not releasing teams early in the week. That's the little rant over in relation to that. Moving on to soccer, and if you were a Manchester United fan, today was a tough day. If you weren't, it was probably a great day as a result of Man United losing in the Europa League final last night to Villarreal. United, best team in paper, probably the best team on the pitch. The match ended level after extra time and went to penalties. And I think that Villarreal, I think the score was 11-10 in penalties. That is so unusual. Like 5 penalties each were taken, and that they were level at that, and then to a sudden death. Some question marks about Bruno Fernandes. He was the United captain last night in the absence of Harry Maguire, that he opted and allowed Villarreal to take the first penalty. I think, did that make a difference? Probably not. But any other misfortune that missed the penalty, he saved none of them, and then he took one, and that was David De Gea. He was kind of well, I shouldn't say the villain of the piece, because these penalty shootouts are just simply a bit of a lottery. But anyway, United wait for the trophy goes on for another year. The two big matches though, the three big game, is it two? 3 games on. Tomorrow night we have in St. Coleman's Park. It's on at 7:45. It's the Division 1 of the League of Ireland between Cove Ramblers and Cork City. Now both of these teams are well down at the bottom. Cove Ramblers are 9th out of 10, and a place above them are Cork City. When they met earlier on in Thomas Cross, Cork City won 2-1. On this occasion, it goes without saying that it's a huge game. Somebody said they'd prefer if they were playing in the Premier League, but right now, one of them looks in danger of being relegated, not mind getting up to the top league. So yeah, that should be an interesting clash. The other game is the Champions Cup final, or league final, between Chelsea and Man City. That's on in Porto on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And in the past, before, when there wasn't as much soccer on television, this was a huge game, regardless of who was in it. I think there's a little bit of soccer fatigue, to be honest with you, and these two teams, I don't know what kind of following they have in this. Well, they have certain following, that don't get me wrong. But anyway, City have never won this, Chelsea have. It's an all-English final. And finally, the big game, I suppose, that some of us will be interested in, that is the championship playoff between Barnsley and Cardiff City and Brentford. And the reason why the winner will be promoted up into Premier League. This is a serious money match now. And the reason we're interested is because West Corkman Conor Horan will be playing. And it's his 4th Wembley final, which is a great achievement, incredible if you like. And he's already won promotion with Barnsley and Aston Villa. And were they to win on Saturday, it would mean that he'd have been promoted with 3 different clubs. And he would have to go down as the most, we'll use the term, promoted Irish soccer player ever. Rugby and this Rainbow Cup got this struggling to some conclusion. But anyway, each team has 2 matches left, and on this occasion we have this Friday night we have at Thomond Park, Munster are going to be playing Cardiff Blues, and after that they have one other game. But seemingly now what's going to happen is that whoever is the best in the Northern Hemisphere, and remember now it is teams in the English or the French teams are not involved in this. Whichever is the best one, and Munster have a great chance of being in that, will play the winner from the Southern Hemisphere. And there's a Southern Rainbow Cup going on down there in South Africa between the 4 franchises. They have a date now fixed now for that final. It's the 19th. It's the 19th of June. And it's going to be played in Treviso. That's kind of the neutral venue. So yeah, so best of luck to Munster on that. And finally in golf, and I know that a lot of you were following the fortunes of the PGA last weekend, and Phil Mickelson at 50 years of age winning. But the big golf story, I suppose, from some of our point of view, maybe from all of your point of view, is the news that came out of Portmarnock Golf Club yesterday. 127 years they're there, and they succeed in keeping the ladies out for all of those years. And by the way, their only reason, they had a vote yesterday, and it was an overwhelming majority, despite the fact 16.6% of the members voted not to leave in women. We're waiting to get a list of those tulips. But anyway, probably the only reason that they did allow the ladies in is because they may lose funding, but certainly the big tours were not going to stage any championship at Portmarnock ever again. So at long last, after 127 years, the ladies are allowed to play golf in the at that North Dublin. I think there's North Dublin venue. So that's it, my friends. Till the next time, take care.